We will stop unworthy and incapable people from coming into this world. How does it sound to you? Surprising? Disgusting? Alarming? Or revolutionizing? You might be thinking, how is this possible? Somebody must be insane to say this. They didn't even say this, but they worked on making it possible too. This is the controversial story of Nobel Prize sperm bank, and the main character is Graham. Robert Clark Graham was a multimillionaire who made his millions by making shatterproof eyeglasses. Before opening up the sperm bank, Graham used his money on human evolution. He also wrote a book named The Future of Man. In the book, he discusses about how humankind is now too dominant on Earth, and that the naturalistic rule of survival of the fittest no longer applies to humans, and more average humans are giving birth, leading to the human race being low IQ overall on average. He was afraid that this would lead to world communism, and so came up with an idea of sperm bank, which he named Repository for Germinal Choice. He believed that collecting DNA or sperm from intelligent and gifted individuals and then making babies out of those genes will solve the problem. His goal was to create intelligent children who are future scientists, world-level athletes, and high IQ leaders of the future. And he thought that these would be more useful people for humanity in general. It seems horrible and interesting at the same time. Well, that was just an idea. There was a long story ahead. In an interview in the 1990s, Graham said, "You see, man is far from perfect, but he can be improved. And the key to this is to increase the proportion of advantageous genes in the human gene pool." Graham initially wanted to collect DNA of Nobel Prize winners, so he started calling award-winning scientists, and initially 3 Nobel laureates donated their sperm, and he opened the sperm bank in 1980. After that, because of the new concept, the press gave it the name the Nobel Prize Sperm Bank, which he later adopted the name himself. But the press coverage was also followed by many critics. His worldview of creating future leaders through sperms of the high IQ people was also seen as Nazi eugenic practices. After investigations from several reporters, it turned out only white men and women were part of this Nobel Prize sperm bank, and hence deemed as racist. These allegations of racism took lightning after William B. Shockley revealed he was one of the 3 Nobel Prize winners to donate sperm. B. Shockley believed there were different IQs of different human races. As he openly said, African Americans were intellectually inferior to whites. He was also afraid that humanity would regress because African Americans were reproducing more than whites. After B. Shockley came out with his views like this in public, the other 2 donors backed out, and their names to this day are still unknown. Graham kept the sperm in the basement of his home and also hired security guards to protect those samples. After the backlash from the media because of the negative coverage, Graham held a press conference in his house backyard. Graham said to the reporters, "I don't know much about Hitler's vision. I don't see a parallel. We aren't thinking of a super race. We are thinking in terms of few more creative, intelligent people who otherwise might not be born." And also tried to deny all the racist allegations against him in 1984, where he said, "We are, I would think, selective, but we're not racist. We will accept excellence in any race. What we're trying to do is optimize the conditions for having children." And later said he was also open to minorities donating to his sperm bank. He said all the Latino and African people he reached out to denied to take part in it. After some time, the media hype of Graham's sperm bank fell out, and no Nobel laureates wanted to donate their sperm to his sperm bank. To keep his company running, he still needed high IQ people to donate to his sperm bank, and so he and his team turned to elite college campuses for donors like Caltech and the University of California, Berkeley from future Nobel Prize winners. But this idea also failed, as only a handful of the thousands they contacted actually agreed to donate the sperm. Secrets reveal none of the new donors actually went on to win the Nobel Prize. Because the repository for germinal choice had difficulties to get good donors, they had families and women waiting in line for more than a year at one point for the samples. What made this sperm bank more appealing to the families was because of their catalog. All the donors were kept anonymous. However, their DNA was assigned a combination of colors. Mr. Green, who was described as a graduate student involved in genetic research. Mr. Green was also listed as having fair skin, blonde hair, 6 foot 200-pound individual with his ancestry. Under his catalog, it also says very handsome, superb physique, happy and confident, and has interest in martial arts and etc. Graham also marketed his sperm bank to women who were members of Mensa, which is a selective high-Q society. There weren't heavy fees for Graham's sperm bank. The shipping fees ranged from $50 to $100 depending on the chosen sperm and area. Graham's team would mail vials of frozen sperm to women or their donors. These vials had to be thawed and used during the woman's ovulation cycle. A lot of women never got pregnant at all, while others had to use it during several cycles to actually get pregnant. Graham funded this whole sperm bank through his personal funds, which estimates to hundreds and thousands of dollars a year to operate. Despite the heavy costs to operate and the difficulties to run the business, some women did have successful childbirths, and estimates to 15 to 20 childbirths a year through the late 80s and early 90s, totaling around 240 children through the project. Graham died in February 13, 1997, after which the repository couldn't last and closed down in 1999. The sperm bank destroyed the remaining sperm samples, and no one knows what happened to the sperm bank data after that. Since then, some reporters have followed and tracked back the kids born through the Graham sperm bank and calculated if his vision was actually useful or not. The media found 9-year-old Doran Blake. As a newborn, he could mark time to classic music with his hands. By age 2, he was using a computer in kindergarten, and he was learning Hamlet and algebra. By age 6, his IQ was measured at 180. He and his mother were featured in People's Magazine and New York Times. He was a well-spoken kid who had big goals for the future, but as he grew up, the media continued to follow him. As he grew, Doran didn't exactly share Graham's ideas about intelligent selection and improving the human race. Neither had he become a scientist or a world leader. Doran Blake expressed his view in an interview saying, "There was a lot of hype around me when I was younger for sort of being a genius. Children don't live up to expectations. It's not their jobs. I am still intelligent, that hasn't gone away, but I certainly wasn't the valedictorian of my high school class." Doran would go on to get his bachelor's degree in psychology from the prestigious Reed College. Later, he got a master's degree in education from Harvard. Today, he's a self-employed father of 2, working as a private tutor where he trains kids in math, science, and standardized test preparations. Doran has said that he thinks having an exceptionally high IQ does not adequate to the measure of a person. He prides himself instead on characteristics like kindness. So far, the repository for germinal choice hasn't produced any Nobel Prize winners. The media found a family who had 3 children, 2 daughters, Leandra and Courtney, and a son, Logan, who were born by Graham's sperm bank. Both the girls scored great in IQ tests, but their son Logan became autistic, and at age 10, he has just begun to speak. However, despite the girls being intelligent and having great academic success, they have had interests in singing and opera. One of them got a scholarship to the prestigious New England Conservatory of Music, while the other likes to play piano and trains with the New York City Ballet. While some people said he just wanted to create healthy and intelligent children, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, on the basis of Graham's sperm bank, today almost all sperm banks in the United States have catalogs of donors that include information like race, height, weight, eye color, and blood type. Nevertheless, some sperm banks offer more information like Fairfax Cryobank, who are very selective of their donors, and their directors have said they only accept 1% of the men who apply for donations. And many companies today have actually moved closer to Graham's idea of sperm banks because of the typical processes and detailed information being provided about the donor. This is the story of how it started, went, and what's happening these days regarding to this idea. It is fascinating and astonishing at the same time. There seem no chances of 100% progress to me. Is this idea really applicable to evolve human race with a man-made method? What do you think? Let us know.